Mayor of Wilmington says a Newsweek reporter lied to him before writing about his city. And is he running for re-election? His answer may surprise you. This is the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Mendte. Welcome to the Delaware Way. We are very proud to introduce to you Mayor Dennis Williams, the mayor of Wilmington. Thank you very much, sir, for being here.
You're welcome.
You were here on the week that Newsweek put out an article calling Wilmington Murder Town, USA. Your reaction?
Well, you know, Larry, people that write stories and write magazines, they're going to write it in their slant to sell magazines. When the reporter talked to me, that wasn't what the story was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about the homicide squad and the changes that we made to make Wilmington better. But of course, when I got the copy of the magazine article, it was totally slanted, and it was some folks in there saying some things that I was very shocked at them for making those statements and comments. I look at it like, you come and you ask me about a homicide squad. What are we doing to curtail the crime in the city of Wilmington? And then you talk about AKA murder capital. I don't think it was a fair shot, but again, you know, people do whatever they have to do to sell magazines.
Are you saying that the reporter misrepresented herself when she came to you?
I think she did. I mean, she said she was going to talk about poverty and other things that had caused a long-term problem in our city, but never did I think she was going to call us murder capital of the USA.
When your office, a spokesperson for your office, put out a reaction in a statement to the Newsweek article, they mentioned education and that there was a 60% dropout rate in the city. Where did you get that number?
Well, we got that number from the Department of Education. At one point, we had a 58%, and we knew it was increasing, and we started looking at the school districts across the board every year when kids started to graduate and who was dropping out. At 16 years old, if you're not willing to continue to stay in high school, you can sign yourself out. And we're looking at that, you know, the money that was on the table for dropout rate and prevention, a lot of that money wasn't being utilized. And it's quite obvious. You can see the young men and women standing on corners during the time when they're supposed to be in school. And I do believe during budget crunches, they didn't have the at-risk officer that would go out into the communities and find out why these kids weren't in school. But most of the schools, if you look at past September, when they get the funding for the child, and the child leaves in October or so, the funding is still there. But that child leaves the school. And if you look at what we're dealing with on the streets of our city with all these young people roaming around during school periods, and we're bringing them into the police station trying to find out what's going on, they don't go to school.
Right. So it's a county school system, and it's basically run by the state.
System.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, and they rate it by all the schools in the county, is what I mean. But
okay.
You're right. But I was getting to the point that it's run by the state.
Yes.
Would you like to see that change?
Well, we can't afford a school district. What I would like to see the city of Wilmington have would be two of the school districts, probably Red Clay and Brandywine. And I would like to see the city of Wilmington have some say. We'd have some voting power. We'd have some say on what curriculum needs to be established for the kids in the city of Wilmington. I would definitely want a big part of that. But could we afford it? We could not afford a school system in the city of Wilmington. To put that on our taxpayers would be cumbersome.
All the things we're going to talk about are connected. All the things that we're going to talk about over the course of this show all lead into that crime rate. When you first ran, I know you're a police officer, and I know you ran to fight crime in the city, and you were going to bring the crime rate down. It hasn't gone down in that time. First of all, that has to be extremely concerning to you. And do you believe you're at the point now where you can say, yes, we have everything in place to help bring this crime rate down?
I think we are at a point where we're in place, but we have to wait until this next academy graduates where my manpower gets up. You know, I came in 22 officers short, 17 officers injured. So you take the two and put them together with 39 policemen down at this point. There was 22 policemen eliminated from the budget prior to me coming in. You had a crime spree which had been going on for quite some time. Long-term problems can't be fixed with short-term fixes. I made a mistake when I was running saying I can fix it in 6 months. You know, sometimes during the heat of the political debates, you say things that you regret, something that I regretted. But I talked about putting a cure violence team in effect when I became the mayor, which I've done. It's a team of people that go out on the street and do mediation. We've had 17 mediations done, and out of those 17 mediations, we know that if our people hadn't gone out and mediated with these folks, you probably would have had 17 additional shootings. Do we think things are working? Yes, we think things are working. But when you have a large area of unemployment, where people don't have jobs, The job training program, you keep giving people certificates and telling them, that a boy, and pat them on the back. It's not working anymore. A lot of people think that this major problem is all narcotics. It's not all narcotics. Some of these folks are robbing each other, sticking each other up. And this is what the retaliation, you shoot my friend, I shoot your friend. You rob me, I get you back if I don't die. And this mediation group we have goes into the emergency room, and we have clinical psychologists on board, and we talk to these folks and say, here you are. You got a shot this time, you're still alive. The next time, if you survive, the shooting may be worse. You could be paralyzed. If you go back out and retaliate, your chances are you're going to go to prison.
When you make the statement that it's working, you can't base that on the crime statistics. Are you basing that on the fact that it would be worse if this didn't happen?
Oh, absolutely. If I can stop one kid from shooting another kid, I've won. That's one life.
But there's no way to prove that.
Well, you say there's no way to prove that, but here's my theory. If my crime team goes out on the street, and you have, and I'm going to give you another quick example after I finish this. If they can talk people into not shooting each other, it works. We had a situation where I can't name the folks, where a young man went out, we had an issue, a couple of guys walked up behind this guy. One of our people in Cure Violence knew them and approached them and said, listen, you don't want to do that. And the guy that was getting ready to shoot this guy said, you were in prison with my grandfather. I'm not going to blow his cap off. That means the top of his head. He didn't shoot this guy because our people from Cure Violence knew him. Larry, that's a homicide right there that we just stopped.
But you can't show that in the numbers. And I think people always gravitate to the numbers.
Right.
And so you have, is there something in those numbers, aside from the example you just gave me, is there something in the numbers when it shows not only the homicide rate, but the violent crimes, which is, as the Newsweek article pointed out, quadruple the national average. Are they somehow unfair? Are we not reading them properly?
They are unfair. That's based on the FBI statistics on the model of less than 100,000 people. If you look at the news and you look at Wilmington, Philadelphia has a lot more to talk about because it's so much bigger. You talk about the Phillies, you talk about the Eagles, and it gets your mind off the homicides. But come on, 3 people shot in one day, 4 people shot the next hour in Philadelphia, people firebombing houses. That sounds like if I moved to this part of the country and I had that news on, it wouldn't sound like a city that's having crime. It would sound like a city that's under war.
Yeah, to your point, I was talking to a lieutenant, and I told your police chief this in the last show. I was talking to a lieutenant in New York, and I talked about the crime rate in Wilmington, the homicide rate. And he said, oh, my goodness, how many murders? And I said, 27. And he said,
I know.
That's a bad Saturday for us in New York. So that is to your point that it's per capita. It doesn't diminish the problem, however.
It doesn't. It doesn't. But let me tell you what we're going to do. We are going to bring this down, but again, the jobs have to come into play. We have a lot of people talking about what can I do for you? What can we do for the city of Wilmington? Help us create some jobs. Put some money into it. Put a real jobs program together. Why don't you give me money to rebuild the infrastructure in the city of Wilmington? I can put probably over 2,000 or 3,000 people to work. And I know when that happens, crime will go down. People need to be employed. And it's all over this nation. It's not just here. I go to the Conference of Mayors every year. And just like you just said a few moments ago, I was telling several guys about my problems from Cincinnati, Chicago. They almost ran me out of the room for this little problem that I have. I said, Dennis, come on, give me a break, man. What do you want us to feel sorry for you? Look, this is what we have. Look at ours. Right. And I really felt like about that tall after they started explaining their problems to me. But of course, it sells papers, it gets headlines. Wilmington is so bad. Well, if Wilmington was so bad, why do we have most of the corporate giants in the nation that incorporate here? Why do we still have all the banks coming here?
Well, stay on that point for 1 second, because you go to downtown Wilmington and you see these beautiful big buildings with banks on the side, and it seems pretty safe. So when we talk about, is it like most cities that when we talk about the problems with crime, it's in certain areas?
It is in certain areas, and we did a downtown deployment plan for the business community, because without business and without people, your city dies. But we're also in the communities. One of the plans that I have, that's another part, I'm getting ready to start opening up some community resource centers into the certain areas of the city. There's one we're working on now. We're just trying to find a location, especially in the Latino community, because I felt they were underserved when I was running for office. We have a person that we hired. He's a retired police officer. He has a lot of respect in the Latino community. I've known him since I was 11 years old. He's a retired police sergeant, Ramon Rodriguez, and he's going to do great things. He's already working there out of the community center on the west side. And these are the things that we need to do, where people trust people, where people can communicate with people, because without trust, you don't get anywhere, Larry.
I want to talk a little bit more about policing. I also want to get into those jobs you were just talking about after we take a quick break and we come back with Mayor Dennis Williams from Wilmington, Delaware. Welcome back with Mayor Dennis Williams from Wilmington, Delaware. Bobby Cummings, are you satisfied with the job he's doing?
I am.
Are you, the crime rate has not come down, but you think the steps he's taken go in the right direction?
Oh, absolutely. It takes time, and we'll get there. I know we will.
The Newsweek article that we mentioned a second ago talked a lot about the homicide, the homicide division. And I wrote about this too for Philadelphia Magazine. Why did it take so long to come up with that?
Well, first of all, you don't respond to everything that people write about. That's a fatal mistake when you're in a leadership position. You have to analyze, you have to think it out, you have to weigh before you jump in. I don't respond to heat and news articles because I think you make a mistake.
Forget the news articles for a second. I mean, if you have you have this problem, and you don't have a homicide
you already had a
unit,
detective division.
It looks bad.
But you know, that's because people say that. You have a detective.
It's not bad?
You have a detective division that's already working. Okay, and they're investigating homicides. When they get to the point where they're being saturated, that's one of the reasons I looked at this and I said, you know what, it may be good just to pull a certain group of people and let's go to the feds and get a couple of people to help us that know how to track firearms.
So that wasn't in response to criticism. This is something you did separately from the criticism.
No, it wasn't in response to all the criticism. Some of the things that people said made me think and listen. But all the articles and all that nonsense that was written, no, I didn't respond to that. I respond to the people because you know what, they're going to write about you, whatever you do, Larry. You know, tomorrow they'll say the homicide unit stinks. The mayor shouldn't have did that. And then, you know, next week that'll be the top story. So I don't pay attention to that, really, I don't. Because if I do, I'd be crazy.
A month ago, when I was talking to the police chief, he said he needed 50 people. You gave him less than 10 for this homicide unit. Is that sufficient, you believe?
Well, it's going to be sufficient until we use all the federal equipment that we're getting. We're getting quite a few things from the ATF. They'll be doing a lot of our gun tracking and tracing, different types of equipment that track projectiles. So that's going to help us major. But when we get this new 35 people on the academy on the street, and once they get ready to go, we may put some additional folks into the homicide unit. But also I'm looking at trying to hire another 15 police officers, which will take us up to 50 new officers.
Let's talk about the city council for a second. I do want to talk about jobs and how you can bring jobs to the city aside from just the infrastructure bill, which I understand would be a big deal. But how do you feel? Do you feel like your relationship with the city council has improved since you've been here or gotten worse?
We work together.
Should I read into that answer that it's not good?
No, we work together.
Do you think that there are people on city council that I don't want to say stand in your way, but disagree with you for personal and political reasons more so than the good of the city, or do you just take them as honest adversaries?
Larry, I don't know what their reasons are, but I think the most startling thing to them was a legislator came in and became the mayor. We had one other previous legislator that was the mayor, that was former Mayor Jim Seals, but he was a city councilman. I never came through city council. I came directly from the General Assembly. And I think it was a shock to these folks because I'm known as a statey. And the way I set things up was totally different. There was things that was done from previous mayors that I eliminated. We changed things. There was more accountability, less spending of frivolous cash. I wanted to make sure that the summer jobs program, the jobs went to the poorest of the poor children. I didn't give out goodies anymore like things were done in the past. And I'm not going to point the finger at folks. I just came in and I said it's a new day and it's time for a change. And some members of my staff said, well, you know, you just drew the line in the sand and you're going to have some problems with that. And I understand that. And you know, it is what it is in this business, but when you're a leader, you make decisions, and sometimes you have to make tough decisions. Tough decisions sometimes that you have to come back on and deal with in the latter part of your political career. And that's where I am at this point, and I think that I've made the right decisions.
James Baker was here, the former mayor, the man you replaced, and he took your side in some of the fights against city council. He said he thinks sometimes the city council in Wilmington is overreaching, that they're trying to make executive decisions instead of legislative decisions, and that is not their purview. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%.
And specifically when it comes to the fire department? Is that
well, the fire department and other situations that they've tipped across the line, and we've had to challenge and say, you know, you're the legislative branch, and that's where you need to be.
Now, you said that the relationship was muddied in the very beginning because you weren't part of the structure here and you came from the state.
That's my feeling. I truly.
So you think it's personal?
I think that they didn't understand me, and I think that, you know, when I came in and made some major changes, I think some people were upset. I think they thought that I could have probably sat down with them and had a better discussion. Maybe I could have, but again, you know, the charter says there's one CEO of Wilmington, and that's the mayor.
Let's talk about these jobs. You talked about infrastructure, and an infrastructure bill would be huge, not only for Wilmington, but for cities across America. But that can't be it.
No,
I know
no,
you have
it
this
can't be.
Grow Wilmington initiative,
Yes.
but how do you attract businesses to Wilmington now, especially, that's the problem with these headlines about crime in Wilmington. Who wants to move here?
It is. Well, we just brought on two new Starbucks. We're bringing on a new Marriott. I think people are starting to see that, you know, the headlines aren't really what it is in Wilmington. You do have your crime, but if you look all over this nation, you see cities are growing that have crime. And it's the same thing here. You know, we have 2 new condos going up, 350 new apartments. 80% of them are filled already. We have a lot of small businesses coming in. We have a new parking garage in the 1000 block of Jefferson where the first floor is going to be commercial, upscale commercial. So I would say that we are moving in the right direction. We just brought in an ice skating rink that is full to capacity. We have a new place called Trampoline where a lot of young kids go. They come as far away as Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. If you go down there, our movie theaters are full every night. Our ice skating rink now is full. The Trampoline Club is full with young children. That was about 60 jobs we brought on. I mean, I think we're doing okay.
I read an article about you a couple of months ago, and I want to talk about that when we come back, about making Wilmington a little hipper. Yeah. When we come back with Mayor Dennis Williams. Welcome back to the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Mendte. We are with the Mayor of Wilmington, Dennis Williams. We continue our conversation about jobs, and it's related to the image of the city. And we'll get back to the crime thing in a second, but I read this article where you said you wanted to make Wilmington a little hipper, and that would help create jobs and stimulate the city. Explain that.
Well, one of the things we did a young professionals executive order, and they meet on a quarterly basis, and now we're going to try to push them to come in and meet probably every 30 days. These folks are coming in and they're telling us what young people want, what kind of entertainment they want. And we do have to make Wilmington a little hipper because, you know, young people aren't afraid to go out at night. They have disposable income, and we want to put out there and have things that they want to do. Not baby boomers my age. I'm 61 years old. They don't want to do what I want to do. Right. I mean, they hang out. And we're trying to get these colleges downtown to probably put some dorms in because kids charge their credit cards up, and who do they send the bill to? Their parents. And we know that. I mean, they want to dance, they want to go out and have fun, they want to look for girls, girls want to look for guys, they want to have dinner, they want to go to the movies, they want to party, and that's what we want.
Yeah, it's not just the college students. I've noticed this as I've walked around downtown Wilmington. You've got all these big buildings, you have these young professionals.
And these are the ones that's on this committee also.
And then they go home.
Yes, but that's what we don't. Or they go to Washington, D.C. and Baltimore and Philadelphia, and we don't want that. We want them to stay here and spend their money.
There's been talk in this big casino debate in the state as to why Wilmington doesn't have one. Would it help to have a casino in Wilmington?
I pushed for a casino years ago when I was in the General Assembly. Right now, I'm looking at this. I don't think so. I mean, could it bring jobs? Yes, it could. But how long will that last? I mean, right now, Wilmington is only 60 miles from Dover Downs, and you have 30 miles less to Chester and Philadelphia. I think if you put a casino here now and you're talking about saturation, I think we'd be in trouble. And when I say be in trouble, I think that eventually it would close down, and now you'd have all these folks that are unemployed. Look at Atlantic City. And you would have a big white elephant is what I'm going to call it. And years ago, I thought it would really thrive and do well. I don't think so.
But the time has passed because of competition?
I think the time has passed, yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's feasible to put it on the waterfront. I really don't think we need a casino there with all the programs we're having for children now. And everybody there, I don't think it would fit in it. I just don't think
The one thing you can have here that other states can have because you don't have a professional team is sports betting.
Yes.
You don't think that would attract the crowd?
I don't think so. And you know what? I'm not going to try to base our income and our budget on gambling because another man's gold is another man's, I don't know the other end of it. It's misfortune.
But somebody's losing.
Yeah, somebody's losing. And I don't want to do that either because, you know, the next thing we'll have, you'll probably start having stick-ups in the parking lot or people running around here trying to, you know, to panhandle and more aggressively. And why do I want to worry about somebody going into the casinos winning money when I know other people are losing on the other end? I don't think so.
You know, we're having this interview about crime in Wilmington to the backdrop of protests across the country about policing in African-American neighborhoods. First of all, let me just get a general thought. As you watch these protests, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's unfortunate. I mean, I watched these protests growing up as a young teenager in the 60s, and to me, we're going wrong somewhere along the line. I mean, It's absolutely crazy. We shouldn't be in the business of having police brutality any longer. I saw a situation this morning on the news where an elderly man had a fictitious tag on his car, and the officer slammed this man. I'm just saying, oh my God, these guys don't realize there's cameras and all here. And I mean, here we got another big story. It'll be on World News tonight, I'm pretty sure. What is going on?
Are you for cameras on your police officers?
Oh, absolutely.
And do you think that DAs should be handling these cases, or should a special prosecutor be brought in?
Well, now you don't want to start having too many hands dabbling in.
How about just high-profile police cases? Because the DA, doesn't the DA necessarily have a conflict of interest because he depends on these police to build their cases? So, and then he's supposed to turn around and prosecute them. Isn't that an inherent conflict? And because of that, I mean, this isn't just me speaking. This is many people saying that they would like to see a special prosecutor brought in on those cases.
Well, they could split the division. I mean, that's what they can have. They can have a division within the Attorney General's office that does nothing but investigate police officers, just like you have an internal affairs unit and you oversee. But you must realize the FBI and everybody comes in, and these FBI agents who pretty much investigate police officers, they don't come from the local jurisdiction. A lot of times they're sent out of Washington, D.C. They don't even have no relationship with most of these police officers. If they think it's getting ready to go south and it's so close for an indictment or a civil rights violation, they bring this team in from Washington, D.C. or other parts of the country, and they start to investigate police. So I don't want people to think overall it's just the grand jury and the local internal affairs unit, because it's not. Because this situation in Ferguson, this gentleman's not out of the woods yet.
I want to continue this conversation when we come back. We're going to be wrapping things up, and I want to talk about you personally. And if you're, I know you wanted this job all your life. Now that you have it, if you're glad you have it, when we continue our conversation with Mayor Dennis Williams. We left off with Mayor Dennis Williams from Wilmington. We left off in talking about the situations in Ferguson and Staten Island and the protest and the call for different police techniques in African-American neighborhoods. One of the things that has come up, especially in Ferguson, and now we find out it's happening around the country, is that many times the police departments and the racial makeup of a police department doesn't reflect the community. How's Wilmington?
I think we're doing fine. As time prevails, I think we're working it out where it does meet the expectations of the community. I think what it is, you have to go out and you have to recruit very hard. You know, a lot of African Americans aren't interested in being police officers anymore, you know, because a lot of them have gone to college, and a lot of them just feel that, hey, you know, it's not worth me going through this nonsense, having a possibility of getting shot or injured when I can go somewhere else and make more money. Now, I given our guys authority to recruit broader military bases 200 miles outside this perimeter, and I said you just have to sell what a good thing being police officers.
But you feel it's important?
It's very important. It's very important.
And why is it important? Tell me why it has to reflect. Because the other side of that argument is that you don't think maybe white officers can do as well in those communities.
Some white officers can do as well in those communities and can do better than some black officers in those communities. But you have to have a racial makeup, because when you have a person in authority that has the power to take people's freedom, you need people of every color that live in that jurisdiction. Because if you don't, you're going to have some issues eventually along the lines. That's why Ferguson has the problems that they're having.
And as I promised, I know that when you were a cop, you were thinking about someday being mayor. At least that's what I read. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And now you're mayor and you're going through the Newsweek article, and you're going through your fights with city council. Are you happy in the job? Is happy the wrong word to use?
You know, my mother said, "Be careful what you wish for." But I am happy. There's days that I'm a little disillusioned, but other than that, I just put my armor on and go to work. Yeah.
Will you run for re-election?
Stand by.
So you do have questions about it at this point, though?
I'm in the starting block.
Yeah. Would you still want to stay in politics, or if you didn't run?
No. If I chose not to run this time, I'm retired. I have 5 grandchildren and 2 great son-in-laws, 3 great daughters, wife, and I'm pretty much going to hang it up if I decide to leave. I really appreciate you coming in today. It was great to meet you. Great to meet you, too. Mayor Dennis Williams from Wilmington. I'll see you next week on the Delaware Way. This is Larry Mendte.